the first question that we always get, is it difficult to find a rental property? And what are the top tips? I get this a lot. Like, yay, you get the job, great. And now?
Yeah. So yeah, like let's start with the bad news. It is hard to find rental property. Like it's a really competitive housing market. There's a lack of affordable housing, especially if you're looking in some of the major cities like Amsterdam, Utrecht, The Hague, Rotterdam, where most of the expat jobs are. There's probably reckon on paying like the average price per square meter at the moment is about 18 euros and above. So yeah, your rent's probably gonna be higher than it is in your home country. I guess the things to mention is there are plenty of options. Like there is a lot. Like it's a very quick housing market. Things turn over very quickly, but a lot of stuff comes on the market as well. So you just have to reckon on a higher price. I think it's also relatively true that international people somehow just end up paying more than locals because we don't know the right people, or landlords can charge a little bit extra when they know that people are desperate. But I think it's definitely a case of keeping your ear on the ground and knowing the right people and making the right moves at the right times, and also just a lot of it is luck and patience.
Don't forget the scams as well.
And yeah, we'll come on to scams. Don't you worry. We've got some scam stories. So in terms of like looking for a house, there's a lot of websites you can find online. Some of the big names are like Pariahs, Funda, I Am Expat. Actually, we have a housing listings board as well, which is specifically like international friendly. If you're looking for a room or like a flat share, you can there's sites like one's called Carmanet, which is a paid site, or actually Facebook is just a really, really good resource in terms of there's lots of groups that share links for they'll put up pictures and people looking for housemates, and so having a Facebook account is really helpful. That's how I found my room, was through a Facebook group. It's also worth, if you have already arrived in the Netherlands or you're moving and you know people who live here already, it's worth speaking to people and telling them that you're looking for a place to live. A lot of the time it's about finding someone who's just moving out and they would prefer to get someone to move into their apartment instead of their landlord having to put it out. So sometimes even the best properties don't even make it onto market. So that's one of my big tips, is to just try, like, let people know that you're looking, ask your friends, ask your colleagues, ask random people on the street, like someone will help you, like you will find something. One thing that I do think is worth mentioning is something that I found particularly surprising, is that housing listings, especially on Facebook, you will often see that they're listed with just a thing at the top that says no internationals, which basically means that no Dutch people should apply for this room. It can be quite shocking. The explanation is relatively benign. It's basically that a lot of the time house shares are in like student housing complex or fraternities where they have rules about Dutch nationality and like loan eligibility. And so sometimes it's like you're genuinely not able to live in that housing complex. Or it could be a case of it like being a group of entirely Dutch people and them not wanting to speak English at home. It's not a nice thing to see, but I don't think it's like as negative as it comes across necessarily. There's definitely like expat friendly places that you can look for housing groups. So there's specific ones on Facebook that will say like internationals housing groups or stuff like that. So you might, if you went through that, and obviously end up living in a group with just internationals. And I don't know whether, if you want to learn Dutch, for instance, it's better to live in a house with other Dutch people, but there are expat friendly groups. One of my other big top tips would be to send out personal messages to people. So instead of just copy pasting a thing, I guess it's the same with CVs. Instead of sending off like a bunch to like 100 people, think about it like an application. Like there will be 100 people applying for this room, so you need to stand out. So try and get some of your personality across. Maybe talk about what you like to do, and they're trying to find someone that's going to fit in with the house, because obviously everyone wants to have a nice housemate and live with people that they like. So writing a personal message is a really good point. Don't give up. You will send out hundreds of messages. I'm trying to find a room, but everyone will find something. Victoria was telling me the other day that like one of her friends who recently moved to the Netherlands was like looking for a house, and she was starting to get really, really desperate. And then literally 2 days before she was due to fly, she found something. And the same for me. Like after 3 weeks, I was starting to get really like fed up. And then I just went to a let, and they were like, "Yeah, do you want to move in?" You know, and it always comes together.
Yeah.
Consider short-term lets. Furnished apartments is like a interim solution. I know people that like let out Airbnbs for like a month or two while they're have a base to work from. Did I lose my connection a second there?
Yeah, you lost
very briefly.
We lost you 2 seconds.
So like I just said, have a short-term let or something to just cover you for your first couple of weeks. And then I would also recommend checking whether you're eligible for a benefit that the Dutch government gives out called Broodtoeslag. Sorry about my Dutch pronunciation, which is like a subsidy to help with your housing, and the threshold for it is higher than you might expect. So it's definitely worth looking into because it can help you with your rent. One of my final tips, I know we've talked a few times about BSN and registering, and that the most important thing to be able to register is you need to have somewhere to live first, which can be difficult because you need to start working and you can't start working until you have your BSN. So one thing that I found is in Amsterdam in particular, and I think it also exists elsewhere, you're able to register your employer's address for the first few months while you look for somewhere to live, and you get your BSN, and then you can just update your address later when you actually find somewhere. So in Amsterdam, which is a company for like internationals, it's an organization, they have an office in the center of Amsterdam. You can go there with a form for your employer and register. So that's what I ended up doing, so that I could get my BSN. So that was a really, really like big lifeline for me because it helped me to sort everything out before I found somewhere to live. But generally, as we said, find a job, then find somewhere to live, and then you will be able to start your life.